Hello, it's John Heaton, and today I'm going to review the live Beatles album, Beatles at the Hollywood Bowl. And I bought the album, the remastered album, a couple of years ago when it came out. And what triggered me to do this review, I didn't review it at the time for some reason, I don't know why. But I was doing a review of the Stones album, Get Your Ya-Ya's Out, and I was bemoaning the lack of a Beatles album from the same period. And perhaps I was bemoaning the lack of a Beatles album from any period, really, and one of the commenters pointed out Hollywood Bowl. And it's the only thing we have. It's not fantastic sound quality, but it is safe to say it's easily the best live album we have from the Beatles. The other stuff we have is things like Live in Hamburg, the Star Club and stuff, really quite dismissible bootleg quality. And when this album was recorded at the time, George Martin was against, he wrote the sleeve notes to the first album in '77. So when they first did the Hollywood Bowl concerts, they decided to record it. George Martin was against the idea because he didn't think they could get the same sound quality. And initially they listened to the playbacks and they were disappointed with the results. And there were no plans to put the album out because all the songs had been featured on albums. So it was left in the can. And then after the split, soon after the split, John Lennon mentioned in Lennon Remembers that the Hollywood Bowl tapes exist. He said it was quite nice, it'll probably go out there someday. And within John Lennon's lifetime, George Martin was given the task of remastering it. And it came out in '77 as this album. And he did, with the technology at the time, I suppose he did quite a nice job. But it's still borderline listenable. It's decent, but it's still got a lot of crowd participation, which is quite atmospheric. But anyway, I'll come to the new album a bit later. But this album, I bought it. It's obviously an important historical document, well, as is the Hamburg one, but this more so because it was a better sound quality. And captured them really at the height of Beatlemania. The excitement is quite tangible. They recorded Shea Stadium in concert film as well, and that was available. It still hasn't been released officially. Should be remastered and put out, because that's a very exciting film to watch. This album, I didn't play it very often over the years, and then it was announced that Ron Howard was doing a film, so he came out with this documentary film, which is very interesting and has some, on the second disc, has some live footage of them recording tracks. It's well put together. It focuses just on their live career as such, so stops at virtually in '66, although a little bit on the rooftop at the end. And then this companion CD with the nice booklet, and then the LP. Well, the first thing to say is the cover is not very good. It's got this huge Beatles logo on it for some reason. Bit unnecessary, bit like the anthology, I suppose, same logo. Quite a nice picture, but could have done without the name, really. Don't need to sell the Beatles by their name, really. And the gatefold has got some sleeve notes from David Frick, and a little bit from George Martin saying, those of us who were lucky enough to be present at a live Beatles concert will know how amazing, how unique those performances were. It was not just the voice of the Beatles, it was the expression of the young people of the world. That quote is taken from the '77 album, the back cover, where George Martin does the sleeve notes. So Giles Martin did the job of remastering this from what his father had done in '77. And when did this come out? 2016. So yeah, nearly 40 years later. And it's just remarkable what he's done. And I went back deliberately to listen to this album after this comment I got on the recent video saying, what about Hollywood Bowl? I said, well, yeah, maybe I overlooked it, because I did buy this when it came out and I played it. But I really went back and listened to it, and it was a bit of an eye-opener for me. I think it rewards a concerted sit down and listen, or in the car or whatever, just all the way through the concert. There's tremendous energy to the songs, as there was on the 77 album. But here you can hear the instruments. Giles has done a masterful job in bringing out, Ringo's drums, Paul's bass, even you can hear, harmony vocals. What did I notice in particular? John's harmony vocal on Things We Said Today. Someday When I'm Lonely, that on that bit was very, very nice to hear. It's there on the album, but I'd never really heard it clearly on the live version. Roll Over Beethoven is taken at a much faster pace than with the Beatles, and it actually is a more exciting version. What else? Nice introduction to Hard Day's Night from John Lennon. All My Loving, yeah, they're all done brilliantly, and the harmony vocal on the bonus track, Babies in Black, one of John and Paul's most joyous harmony vocal duos of their career. They really enjoyed doing this one live, I think. Everybody's Trying to Be My Baby is done with great vigour on here, and actually, for me, improves upon the Beatles for Sale version, which was a little bit leaden. So bonus tracks which weren't on the 77 album, 4 of them on here. You can't do that, Wanna Hold Your Hand, Everybody's Trying to Be My Baby, and Babies in Black. But if I looked at because the bootleg CD came out of the full 64 and 65 concerts, and so there were a couple of tracks missing from this, which will include I'm Down from which closed the 65 show, If I Fell, which was in the 64 show, and I Feel Fine, which was in the 65 show. For some reason, those tracks are not on here. I don't know why. For completeness sake, it would have been probably nicer to have the 64 concert on one disc and the 65 concert on another, but they were quite faithful to the original album and just stuck on 4 bonus tracks, so I'm not complaining hugely. It's still very nice to have, and perhaps I had undervalued it, because it really, although they may not have been able to hear what each other was playing, and drowned out by the girls screaming, the musicianship of the band still comes through as very tight, and not just the vocal harmony I was talking about, but the musicianship on the Chuck Berry numbers, the Carl Perkins number, and on tracks like Hard Day's Night and Help, Wanna Hold Your Hand, Ticket to Ride with Ringo's drumming. So it kind of puts to bed that myth that the Beatles were not good live band, which various people have said over the years. Would have been nice to have more representation of their live performances, and obviously it would have been nice perhaps if they'd toured in their later years, but that was not to be. They stuck to the studio and did a very good job there. So just wanted to sing the praises of this album. I can't really say why I didn't review it at the time, but it's a definitely important piece of the Beatles catalogue, and thank you for watching. See you next time.